afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to the new show. I'd like to give a warm welcome to our first guest, Diabolus Rex. He is Magus of the Chaos Imperium.
How you doing, sir?
Good. How are you?
Excellent. So we've got a few questions for you. You are one of the most interesting individuals on the face of this earth, whether people know it or not. So I think we'll just jump right in. What is the Chaos Imperium exactly?
We are an occult think tank, which is using technological magic to advance new ideas for magic in the quantum age. It's actually a book that I'm working on in reference to that, and hope to release within the next year.
Oh, that's going to be great. Now, technological magic, right off the bat, some of our listeners are going to be like, huh?
Well, I think that we see a lot of magic that I classify as peasant-oriented. It's something that's been practiced for thousands of years. I mean, we can chart it all the way back as far as its, the antecedents into ancient Egypt, and these involved both symbols and ephemera related to the earth itself, and a knowledge of basic science on the part of early practitioners of magic allowed us to create signs and symbols and language that could be manipulated physically. Well, we're living in the quantum age now, and so it's important to be able to use that knowledge that we have, that new information, to create a level of understanding for magic that is beyond anything we've ever done before. So we concentrate on that. We're involved in a lot of theoretical projects, and we do that through an arm of the order called Black Sun Occult Engineering and Design, in which we create and use machines, technological elements that directly interact with quantum elements of science and the smaller aspects of physical reality, because it begins at the subatomic level, proceeds upward from there. So it's very theoretical, very experimental, but we've had really interesting results so far, and huge projects rise.
Tell us about some of the results that you've seen.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to try and manipulate reality, you have to be able to do it on a grand scale. If you're going to steal, you have to steal millions. If you're going to kill, you should kill millions. If you're going to manipulate reality, you should do it on a scale that's above and beyond anything else that's been done. So we believe that the use of torsion and energy and electromagnetic force, which Nikola Tesla, a famous scientist and designer, he talked about these types of things as well, and so we're using a lot of his type of
theories,
his take on science, manipulated or turned over into the magical schema of things to make changes in reality as well.
Wow. So I've seen just on your public profiles and through the internet that I've seen your Ragnarok engine. What else have you built? And tell us a little bit about the Ragnarok engine as well.
Yeah.
Well, the Ragnarok engine is an 80,000-pound military-grade experiment in the creation of a force generator that can be used to create a singularity, psychic singularity, that the magician would weld with, become part of, and it may actually be able to propel you outside of physical space-time. That's the major focus of that machine. Wow. It could also theoretically be used to create what are called tulpas, or thought forms, as a byproduct of its actions. In doing so, it could be used as an occult weapon.
So
Wow.
how far along are you with the Ragnarok engine?
I've been working on it since 1996, and at least another 5 years.
Wow.
Hmm.
Wow.
So you're just about there. I mean, you guys are getting close to making this
There have
happen.
been various things that have come in the way. It's like we need a final place to be able to put it and actually or with it. So I've acquired some property and preparing it, to move it out there.
Hmm.
Eh, This machine is 15 feet long, 7 feet wide, and about 10 feet tall.
Wow.
It can only be moved by a specific type of company that's involved in the moving of machinery. They crane work type of companies, this
Sure.
type of, and I'm in contact with people like that. So, but getting the compound ready for its move has been a major thing. So I haven't been able.
Oh wow. Where's the compound? What's the address? I'm kidding. I'm just like, is it in the?
Yeah, I'm not ready to let anybody know. I mean, if
Okay.
anybody wants to see it, I mean, I'm making plans to be able to publicly.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'd love to come see it.
Because I believe that technology. Yeah, well, good. I believe that technology is art as well. It's beautiful, and I think that people would be seeing it, even if they didn't accept the premise behind its operative principles. You can still appreciate what it looks like. Because I believe these things should have an aesthetic edge to them as well, which is actually part of the metaphysics of its creation.
Yeah.
It's impressive. I've seen pictures of it. Is it funded solely by you and your company, or?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Completely. Yeah, just by myself.
Okay.
Wow.
Interesting.
That must have cost
I'm not wealthy by any means. I have sacrificed so much to make sure.
Yeah.
I'm not married. I have no kids. I don't have a girlfriend. I don't date. I don't spend money on superfluous and arbitrary things. I mean, I put all my money, resources into development of this type of tech on my own. And, I've never had a crowdfunding operation going or of any kind, though I might try to look for one eventually, because piece to this machine that has to be built, and it's going to be fairly costly.
Oh,
So,
wow.
it's a sphere that fits inside of the ring configuration. If you actually look at the machine and you've seen that part of it. So there's a very specific type of chaos sphere that has to be built for this machine. So that might be great to have people who wanted to contribute to it. We might get something interesting out of that.
Awesome. So this engine, and you're talking about creating a singularity, and a singularity, I mean, is simply something undefined. It's a significantly small event that could be huge in its consequences, something like that. Or it could be something big that's uncontrollable, and things like that. So what I'm asking is what is it that you're trying to create? Is it something that's going to be contained in the chaos sphere and then directed at a desired result?
Inside of the sphere wheel is where the singularity is created, and it could take the definition of what might be called a psychic chariot vehicle, something that the magician could become part of, held outside of physical reality.
Wow. Okay.
We talk, we hear a lot about like how monks can project outside of themselves and they can move, into these divine spaces and things. All of these so-called divine spiritual spaces all still exist inside of telluric space. That is quantifiable space. Even if it's a multiple dimension or an alternate dimension, it's still inside of quantifiable space. Well, how do we know this? It's because it has definition. People can talk about it. People can look at it, or people can relate what it was like to have been there or seen it or experienced it. Well, if that's the case, then it's physical. Doesn't matter what it is. And even if it's invisible, sensation, physical. And what
Right.
we're talking about is that place with, quote, no center and no circumference. Now, that's just a magical reference to this state which is outside of the telluric or the mechanical or mechanistic universe.
Mm-hmm.
It's a place that could be, that we can talk about in the sense that we have the power to apprehend it as thinking beings, but we're not really metaphysically developed enough to be able to tell exactly what that is. We're not philosophically developed either. So you have to get to a specific state to do that. And you can only do that, as far as we're concerned, through the practice of a very unique type of black magic.
Mm. So what first drew you to black magic, and I guess the S word, Satanism?
I've been interested in thaumaturgy, which is the correct definition of magic, as opposed to prestidigitation, which is stage magic, which is trickery, which isn't magic at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's just psychological manipulation, which I don't accept as magic, though various organizations define it that way. I've been interested in that type of thing all my life. As far as Satanism is concerned, my parents had a copy of the Satanic Bible when it came out. Found that in the house library and read it. It made a lot, to me, it spoke to me because I was always attracted. It was unusual and different.
Mm-hmm.
That other people I didn't accept. I was just kind of truculent and very contra to anything else that was out there, but not just to be that way, because I just felt that way naturally. So yeah, it goes all the way back to my early days. I'm 58 years old, so I've been involved in this for a very long time.
Yeah, well. No,
So I read somewhere that your parents were members of the Church of Satan.
There were.
Okay, so you would be considered
they had attended some early lectures that Anton
Okay.
had put on in San Francisco. My mom was very interested in witchcraft and alternative thinking and stuff, and she still is. And so yeah, that's how that book actually found its way into the. So my father was much more objective, more science-based, and he was attracted to it because it seemed to give some kind of meaning to things that weren't spiritually oriented, but seemed to give more fillip to the senses, the physical senses of the world, by observing this as or accepting it as a lifestyle.
Mm.
So I've also read that you were a member of the Temple of Set. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, for a short time. Yes, a couple of years.
So what led you to the Temple of Set versus the Church of Satan?
They're hardcore magicians.
Okay.
And they have a very radical curriculum for the study of magic. It's very rigorous. I know several members of the hierarchy of that organization. They are mentally they're way above anybody else that's doing this type of work anywhere else in the world. Mm-hmm. And when people meet them, they're like, "Yeah, I never thought of it that way." Yeah, so there's a lot of the things that I'm doing now that they find attractive, and I still have good working relationship with a few of them. I'm still on good terms with Dr. Akeem. But I left the organization because I wanted to help advocate and push Satanism as a legitimate religion, and I was doing this in the 90s. That was the heyday of the so-called Satanic Panic, which was this all-out attack, objective, individualistic, and unique thinking. So there needed to be some kind of counterforce to that. And Dr. LaVey liked the way I looked and thought I spoke well, and that scared the shit out of the squares. So I found myself in a priest position fairly quickly and able to help.
Yeah, I actually saw the episode of Montel Williams when I was quite young with you on it, back in, I believe that was 92, if I'm not mistaken.
It was pretty early in the 90s, yes. He was a very nice fellow and very fair. Let me speak my piece, but he kept admonishing me during the commercial breaks to talk down to the level of the human animals because they didn't understand what I was saying. And,
Well,
and I also had to deal with a couple of no goodniks on the program, self-professed experts in Satanism that were just overweight cops who barely get their bulk into a chair that that was provided for them, and tried to stare me down and lost. So, but yeah, that I love going toe to toe with people like that because I just despise them so much.
Yeah.
definitely. And it's funny, the Satanic Panic I was deep in. My father was law enforcement, so of course I did all the seminars and witnessed all of that. And something I'm kind of noticing today with the current moral panic that we're experiencing is the parallels between the Satanic Panic of the 80s and early 90s and the sort of kind of white scare, whatever you'd like to call it, of today. When you see like the occult community, for example, what's your impression of the occult community in general?
First of all, the idea of occult community, a misnomer. There should be no, connection between any one thing and any other. Idea of community rubs me raw, and I don't want any part of that. I have a few people that I've spoken with that they have ideas. No, they want to, like I said, they want to see the trains run on time too. They would like to see more order and more results, and therefore they're opposed to like certain ideas that are being promoted, witchcraft and elements of, should we say, Santa Muerte, worship of death, I guess, and even kind of these velvet-robed Asatru types, and they're opposed to those types of things. They would like to see something that was more real, more down to earth, and truer to itself. And culturally, if any of those things happen to be of a Euro-Aryan-centric perspective, you automatically become Satan's, Hitler's best friend. And I'm opposed to those, those kind of conceptions because I think that, politics belong to the realm of the sheep anyway, and we have to transcend to a state that's, greater than the human position at this time. But I watch these things happen anyway, simply because it's part of what's going on. Witchcraft has a lot of traction right now, essentially made up of, young women who are politically extreme leftists, or they embrace a socialist ideology, but they don't even really understand what that is. And their perspective on it is oriented around, who's got the best looking pair of underwear with Baphomet on it, something similar. And
boiling it down to the lowest common denominator.
Yeah.
It's all belly button, it's lowest common. Like it's all about their clefts, it's like about their blood, and these things again are all telluric, they're all moon based, all oriented mechanical universe. Well, that's not the transcendent realm. I mean, we have two realms. We have the chthonic, and that's the female. It's all oriented around moon and nature and reincorporation of the psyche-eccentric self into nature. You lose the distinction of what you are in nature, as opposed to the Demetrian, which is solar-based or black sun-based, and it's masculine, and it's all about the hyper-refinement of the individualistic being to a point at which it becomes so rarefied and so unique amongst all other forms of energy and matter. Physical universe can no longer contain it. Escape, physical space-time. And that's what my order is all about. It's about the working toward making that happen. So I see all of these other magical activities as just lesser forms, and they can go, they can help propel that as much as they want, but they're all very politically based. And I think that's the anchor that holds them down from developing in it. I believe that animals have a greater chance of a transcendent experience to become something more than what they are.
And do you see this social justice Satanist kind of cannibalizing itself eventually?
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen. In the long term, I like to propel, out several thousand years. Artificial intelligence is going to synthesize with the human condition.
Yes.
We are going to lose race, culture, and ideology. There's going to be no distinction because AI will look for that which is most efficient. It's going to be oriented insect-like or hive-mind type of perspective. Now, this sounds all like science fiction, but and it is going to be driven by artificiality, by machines that can think, divine, much faster than the human brain, and it is unstoppable. The only thing that might change any of that is full-on thermonuclear global, exchange.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've already got AI that's like smarter than insects. It's not quite as smart as we are. And there's also rumors that there is something on the horizon that's already there.
So it's being developed in exponential terms, basically.
Well, yeah, moment by moment.
Yeah.
I would definitely agree with that.
And it won't be stopped. It won't be curtailed. I mean, we've been all prepped for this by movies. I think we've been talking about the revelation.
That's an excellent point.
Method. From the revelation of the method is one of the manifestations that in ancient people were going to be given knowledge about what was going to happen to them. Couldn't do it. Well, why would you want people to know about it if they couldn't do anything about it? Well, the utter fear that would be given off by people would itself be a form of energy that could be used magically by their antagonists. So it's not something to be repressed. It's supposed to be piecemealed out specifically over time. And media is a perfect vehicle for that.
So Rex, you consider yourself to be a theistic Satanist. Am I correct in that?
Well, if by that definition, do I even an exterior corporeality? Yes, I do. But my perspective on a superconsciousness is very different than what other theistic Satanists think, and it's even different than what the Temple of Set believes.
Right.
And if you want a working definition of it, then here it is. It's our perspective within the Chaos Imperium that this being inside the quantifiable universe, it's of such power and originality and uniqueness that you could not be in its presence, live. It would be eliminated. The only way we can understand it, it would be through a secondary avatar type element of it. And that would be something that could be projected into physical space-time, and we could have some form of interaction with it. The only thing that we can really understand with it are going to be elements that we would incorporate, that we would experience every day as human beings, but then higher philosophical and magical aspects, because we do have divine spark within us. But we're still not dealing with the transcendent being itself. We're dealing with, as I said, a projection, a hologram, if you will, of its most understandable aspects. And so in this respect, yes, I don't believe that what we interact with in the actual being itself, only that which we can understand. And it is the goal of my order for us to get to a level in which we could leave that element of physical universe that we can understand and go to this other part where we can actually interact with this being in its most realistic sense.
Okay. So you don't believe in, I guess, the characters of God and Satan, like in, for example, the Holy Bible. It's
No.
not. Okay.
No, I believe that those are very, very primitive perspectives on how this super consciousness actually. The one thing that religion pushes is the fear of being distinct from your creator. Everybody wants to amalgamate with the creative principle. So everybody seems to be one with nature. Or, the ego is evil. It must be destroyed. It must be eliminated. Ego is the sense of self. The id, of course, being, by psychological definitions, is supposed to be all sensation and lust and the mechanistics of pleasure, these types of things. These are all just physical manifestations. The higher aspect is something that they believe, something that would become part of, this is what witchcraft groups and various other magic groups believe, that this would all become part of this greater consciousness of the universe. Well, the universe consciousness is the demiurge, just a creative principle. It's a backwash elements left over from the explosion of the Big Bang, and these creative aspects are something that have been interpreted by major world religions as God. Well, that's not God. Just the ideas, the blueprints that were put into. So I don't see God as this Judeo-Christian ideal. I think it is this much more satanic, dark being which exists outside of that, which we can apprehend by being able to think about it being different than anything else we've experienced. But we can't really know what it is until we can actually make some form of contact with it. And black magic is all about trying to gain the power that this force would have, and making oneself a god.
So when you describe all of this, the thought comes to my head, aliens. What's your take on aliens?
You mean like Zeta 2 Reticuli Greys? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, I don't know. I'm not giving him a name. I'm just talking about something out there in another universe that we might be their pets, their cattle.
Well, those we might be. They might be us already developed, coming back through time to check up on our progress. Because we know we know these kind of things can happen, because now we have knowledge of quantum aspects of the universe operate, and you could have a developed group of human beings from now, let's push forward 5,000 years. They're able to escape time and space into another alternate universe, but they can still keep coming back because they have knowledge about how to return back in time to observe progress. It has been postulated that aliens actually are us from the future, and that may very well be realistic. But I've never interpreted Aleister Crowley's bulb-headed Lom as being a demonic form, but a an actual flesh and blood being that has a far greater knowledge, excuse me, of the ordering of the universe than we have. But again, if it's still existing in an alternate space-time arrangement, still physical, spiritual, it's not transcendent, still trapped inside a physical. That's the hologram that we're chained to make that escape.
Do you lend any credence whatsoever to the simulation hypothesis? That because I've watched some TED Talks from physicists, and they've talked about being able to actually see certain computer code in the cosmos, and also going back to kind of what you were saying as being the way technology advances exponentially. That technology has advanced, and they are then coming back and just kind of what you were explaining a moment ago about 5,000 years and then coming back, and we are them.
That's still an aspect of the physical universe that we would be controlled underneath. It would still be an element of what would be called the demiurge, creative principle. They're simply foot soldiers for that type of development within physical, quantifiable space-time. And the ultimate rebellion is to be able to escape that form of control and make it real. So yeah, I think there are all elements of that which are playing a part in the control of the human equation. The interesting thing is, it's like, why would anything go to effort to watch what's going on with us? And is there a possibility that this is happening anywhere else? When you think about the amazing amount of space and of the literally trillions of worlds that could have life on them, to just presume that this is the one, though it might just belong to just this dimension, is absurd.
Yeah. Did you see, I don't know if you caught this video, it was on YouTube. They supposedly had an extraterrestrial captured, and they were interviewing him, and they, I guess, translated his language or something, but he essentially was saying that he actually is human coming back from the future to warn us about the path we're going down, the thermonuclear war that's going to make them appear aesthetically the way they do because of that nuclear fallout and things like that, just the effects it had on them, and that he was here to stop it and all that stuff. And he was talking about that there's many universes, and in this one, there's only a certain amount of habitable planets for life and things like that, and it's very hard to have human life in this universe. There was like he named how many there were, which is still a lot, but they're very hard to get to and things like that. So did you catch that video on there?
I haven't seen that one, but I have
so interesting.
read and have seen other videos that are similar, and I believe that a lot of that is black ops military propaganda campaign.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying this thing looks too legit.
Why would it's like the whole idea of the benevolent alien coming back to warn no different.
Right.
God.
Yeah, you basically described the space-time continuum in Back to the Future. He's trying to change the space-time continuum.
Yeah.
Yeah, when this thing reaches 666 gigawatts, we're going to see some serious.
What the hell's a gigawatt?
Yeah, right. I wasn't putting too much stock in the legitimacy of the video or the creature. My point was like more. It's really strange how what the extraterrestrial was saying was really in line with what you were saying just now. So and you haven't even seen the video, so that blows my mind.
I think there's a very distinct possibility that developed humanoids from the future could come back and make observations or carry out operations for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
high intelligence experiments, etc., and that could be a very realistic thing. But I also believe that AI will synthesize with human condition to such a degree, and I haven't seen that really with so-called gray aliens. They seem to be pretty much organic beings themselves. I would think that there could be, in a hostile universe, you would probably go for something much more robust than just a tiny little body with a huge head. Though the idea of synthetic and organic exoskeletons has been played around with heavily by Hollywood in various configurations.
Have you seen the footage of the spacecraft that?
Go ahead.
Sorry about that, Rex. There was some footage of a spacecraft that some Navy pilots had filmed. It was on the news recently, and everything that it was doing was defying physics as we understand it. Have you seen that video at all?
I've seen many videos like that. And
okay.
Most of that is our military technology taken to a high level and developed from technology that ended up on this planet through various means, and we've developed it and taken it to another levels. The TRB, which is a triangular shaped craft, which has been photographed and seen through at Area 51, but also at other facilities, is a multiple beam projection craft that can make itself look like it's not only just one craft itself. It can make itself look like a squadron of them because it's using holographic imagery, which is superior to the ship's unique surface material. The programs that are developed by secret PR government are absolutely mind-boggling. I mean, they're like years and years ahead of anything that conspiratorial people are thinking about. They're there, and this stuff came from extraterrestrial sources. Now, the Hanabu 1, Favor School, the Führer balls, these various other forms of extraterrestrial craft, which made their manifestation in Nazi Germany during the latter part of the Third Reich, when everyone was frightened, when they were thinking that maybe they were going to lose the war. These ships and this technology supposedly was channeled by women who were a member of a group called the Vril, and they passed this information on to higher-ranking elements of Hitler's regime and to his scientists, and they began working on the programs to develop the first flying saucers. These saucers, there are photographs of them with guns, with primitive electromagnetic laser technology, etc., etc. Several of them were reported to have been able to leave the stratosphere and go directly into space. One of them, the Hanabu 3, was over 400 feet in diameter and was propelled by Tesla technology. Now, this ship supposedly, and a group of other ones supposedly, left the stratosphere, moon. From there, went on to other places. I don't see any reason why this wouldn't have been possible, and why it couldn't have been actually that information given over to members of the Third Reich by an alien force who were like, well, this is the most advanced group of thinkers in the world today. It's like, we can give this to them, press this on. Or for whatever reason that they would be what would appear to be slightly clairvoyant because they're already living in the future and they've seen how play out in various events. I have a very intense interest in Nazi UFOs and their technology. Ragnarok itself was oriented around discoveries that they made.
I could definitely see that.
because they they were on the cutting edge of all. And after the fall of Berlin, this information went in two separate directions. All of the technology, the physical means for being able to hypersonic warfare became part of the American echelon of military, and all of the psychic aspects that they were dealing with. The Russians got it. The Russians went full bore and began developing projects around it. That's one of the reasons that you hear telekinetic elements of Russian children and some of the women that they had actually worked with, or Russian soldiers that had made sojourns into Tibet and had actually come in contact with some of these forces. They weren't prepared to deal with them, and they had to leave. Tibet had been this repository for alien technology, because it was almost inaccessible by anyone else. So I talk about these things on Clyde Lewis's program. I don't know if you.
Oh yeah. It's really interesting. It blows my mind to try to fathom some of these ideas, but.
Do you have any military background?
I was in the service for about 8 years.
Okay.
Combat engineer battalion. I jumped out of helicopters, took the Army's military test for psychological operations, and helped develop imagery for leaflet bombing campaigns. These are that you would drop over an area from an aerial bombardment. Victim was cogent to the operation, and essentially, helping persuade people to either give up or they should seek other sources of backing than what they were doing. And that was using image-driven propaganda. They call that as memes, but it was the same thing then.
Yeah.
Back in the 80s.
Did you have your?
I wish I had, because if I had, I would have been fired just a few years ago. Who knows what would have happened?
Yeah.
Definitely would have ended up in the Middle East.
Yeah. Did you have your body modifications while you were in the military?
Oh, no.
I know you didn't. So let's talk about that for a while. I mean, for a minute there, if you don't mind, because a lot of people viewing this are going to want to know, when did you get them? What urged you to get them? Why? Things like that.
Well, I've had I have a lot of my ones that are most the horn implants, and I got those because they were to serve as a warning to those who would resent, quote, Dr. LeVay. So they were aspects of connecting me to a full conviction black magic and satanic thought. So I think that your physical exterior should mirror your internal psychic landscape.
Well, it's working.
Well, I've had them a long time, and they've really become part of me.
Oh yeah.
What's a typical day like for you, if you don't mind my asking?
Well, when I'm at work, I wear a stocking. They know that there's something. They're pretty accepting, friendly, and open. And my employers have always, my employers in whatever I've done have loved me.
Yeah.
I had one employer say, you're becoming steadily. Well,
could you repeat that, Rex? I'm sorry, you were breaking up there.
In one of my early jobs, I had one of my employers say, you're steadily becoming unemployable with all of the modification. And I said, really, why is that? He said, well, people might, that, whatever, they might find that unacceptable, and they might. make a complaint. And I said, well, let's look at it a different way. If you understood the amount of discipline and self-sacrifice that it would take to undergo the modifying of the body, if that type of pain and inconvenience were turned into a positive form of activity, such as in the performance of one's job, you wouldn't just be a good employee, you would be an exceptional employee. So why don't you look at it that way? That's why I never thought of it. That makes sense. So
That's the third side perspective. Yeah.
well, yeah, but people don't think that.
Right.
And
Right.
and you know, they only see it this way or that way. I mean, you add another element to the equation, and they shit themselves because they well, I never thought of it that way, or they don't know how to go about, you know, examining this other element. It's like all of a sudden a window in their psyche has been opened to a whole other world that's just beyond their the pain of their PANE, like their experience, and all of a sudden it's like changed for them. And that can either be a good thing, or you know, they can't handle it and they have an existential crisis and they kill themselves, and that's a good thing too. So
Awesome. So Rex, how can someone get involved or find more information on the Black Sun Occult Engineering and Design and the Chaos Imperium?
I'm working on a website for that. I have so many things going, I can only do a little bit at a time on each.
I know your feeling. Yeah.
That's that'll be under chaosimperium.org when it goes up, and there will be a whole section on Black Sun. Occult Engineering and Design is the element that deals specifically with the development of magical technology. That's like not only the Ragnarok engine, Epiphon.
Mm-hmm. The audio.
I'm blanking out here. I've got
Oh.
another element for like a different machine that we're actually working on, which is completely new. But that material will all be, you know, as a specific area within the Chaos Imperium, and the rest of it is like my own thoughts on these magic and development of it. Very very heavily image driven, so there's lots of things you can look at. I'm working on a book called Dominion of Chaos: Black Magic in the Quantum World, and I hope to have that out within the next year. People will be able to read more about this. So.
Nice.
Great.
Awesome. Rex, we want to
Very
thank you
nice.
for coming on. I mean, we learned
Oh,
a
thanks
lot
for
from
having
you.
me. You
Very,
guys,
very interesting individual.
nice to talk to you. So,
Yeah, if you ever want to come back on and promote your book or your projects, you're always welcome.
I would like that. That would be good. We'll
Yes, fantastic.
mix it up, make it a little bit different.
Awesome.
Around.
All right, everybody.
All right.
Thanks for watching.